hello there, human species, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and whoever you're lucky enough indeed to be doing it to. Welcome to I Eat a Little Bit of Humble Pie. This is the S35 CA, the little blood bucket. It looks like a bathtub. They call it the bathtub. When the French tank TD line first came out, I just smashed that thing. I really didn't like it, and I feel that on the whole, my sentiments were borne out. Over time, Wargaming has done nothing but buff that line. They haven't nerfed it, they've buffed it. They haven't buffed this tank. This tank has got some crazy stuff going on, and I bagged the crap out of this tank because I thought it was very, very average. No armor at all. Terrible armor. Crap, can't get any gunshots off, and it was just bad all round. And then I had guys like, I think it was Stinky, Fruit Roll-Ups, mate of mine, on the NA server. He was like, man, you cannot do videos about the S35. I'm like, why not? And he goes, if you get this tank nerfed, I am going to hunt you down. Because the tank is actually, hat tip, really good. And it's really good for a couple of reasons. And it's a couple of odd reasons, in fact. It has something in common with the Tortoise. And I know that sounds really bizarre, because the S35 looks like a bathtub and has absolutely no armor, and actually has a really nimble and agile frame. In fact, you can get this thing up to 62.3 degrees of traverse. 62.3. That's a lot of traversing. And not only that, it actually gets out to 45 kilometers an hour. So it doesn't sound like it has a whole lot in common with the Tortoise. Aha. That's not why I think it's like the Tortoise. None of those reasons. It's like the Tortoise because it has this crazy gun arc. And like the Tortoise, that allows it to do really cool things. The weird thing is, though, it's asymmetrical. What do I mean by asymmetrical? Well, it's different on one side, okay? So it has a 15-degree gun arc to the left, but the gun arc to the right is nearly double that. It has a 29-degree gun arc to the right. Why is that so important? Well, it means you can just about shoot round corners. And for a tank with no armor whatsoever, I mean, I'm not even going to bother showing you an armor profile. Green would be where you get penned, and you are green everywhere. I mean, your very, very best armor at the front is like 100 millimeters, 115 on the slope sides. Mostly your front flat parts are 57 and 35 millimeters. But you're going to see a few of the humans who are taking part in this road test. Chris Masterski here is belting them out like a champion. You're going to see them take advantage of the gun arc. And the gun arc allows you to do something called posting. What do I mean by posting? Well, you'll see if you push up to, say, hard cover on your right side here, and you want to get a shot off to the right, look at how angled up this tank can be. That not only increases your chances of getting a bounce, it means you expose bugger all of the tank. Look how far to the right that gun is able to point. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And when you have a tank that can swing out at 62 degrees of traverse and get shots, it means you don't miss as many shots as you do, say, in a Jaegeroo, where you're traversing slowly across, and you don't have to expose as much of yourself. And what you do expose is quite often very severely angled. Then we move on to the parts of it that are actually a little more interesting. It's got some nice TD DPM, 1931 damage per minute, which is bloody lovely, right in line with the other tier 6 TDs, which is obviously tier 5. You have a 135mm 90 pen 90mm gun with 225 alpha, so nice dose of alpha, which is actually above the norm for most of the TDs you're going to run into at this tier. A 90mm gun is a winner for this one. You look like a bathtub, and yet you move like an agile cat, which is pretty hilarious. Your dispersion is 0.326, which is kind of middle of the road for this tier's TDs. But for what it's worth, you also have the ability, which I haven't mentioned, to depress your gun by 9 degrees. So if you think of it like this, when you're looking to your right with your full traverse on your gun, okay, and then you point it down, you can get this thing into some really bizarre positions to get shots off, and you're going to see that in some of these games. This has been an absolutely lovely game by Chris as well. He's all the way down to the last bloke. And the team is quite complimentary. This guy's sneaky, says the Churchill. I love it. Well done, Chris Masterski. GG, amigo. The S35 is a surprise packet. I really was not prepared at all for this tank and the way it works. It has a great combination of features that allow it to work, and it has a couple of setups. You can also run this with the 17 pounder. Now the 17 pounder is like, for all intents and purposes, you're looking at it, it's a 75mm gun. You get a 160 alpha gun, but you get 171 millimeters of penetration, and you actually get another 200 DPM. The thing you miss out on then is you miss a little bit of the gun arc, right? Not the gun arc. What am I saying? Stop it. You miss a little bit of the alpha. You go from having a lovely big dose of alpha to a very low average dose of alpha, but you get more DPM into that. And there's a lot of TDs at these tiers that do this, like especially your Stug and your Flat Panzer and all that. They all work with different guns, like 75s or 88s, 90mm or 75s. They basically allow you to adjust your playstyle. Like if you want to burn stuff really quickly, you want more DPM, and you're playing in platoon with someone else who's in another burning kind of tank, who wants to just fast, burn stuff down, focus fire it through, then you can run the 75mm for that extra 10% or so worth of DPM. The reason I prefer the other gun myself is that when you're a soft tank and you've got like a nice trick up your sleeve like this, poke around corner, take a shot, pull back thing, you're not always able to get on target for as long as you'd like. And that means that you can miss out on using that DPM, and higher alpha is better in those situations. But for what it's worth, it doesn't seem to be slowing down our mate LP Lima. And you're going to note throughout the course of these games, there are very, very few shots. I mean, look at that shot. That is ridiculous. For a non-turreted TD to be able to pull that shot off, the combo of gun depression and gun arc that is required is excessive. Like, that's nearly 30 degrees of gun arc and 9 degrees of gun depression, giving you a crazy angle. Look, the tank is still pointing off to the left and it's shooting off to the right. I can't tell you how funny that looks when you're actually looking at it from a third-person view. You won't... There's also an issue with this as well. Like, if you post up like this and get those really, really awkward angles, you can blow your camouflage quite easily, because the tracks are very, very twitchy, right? 62 degrees of traverse, you're going to bang. You can see how quick twitch this. It's like a cat in a hot tin roof. And so if you run a camo net with this tank, be very, very cautious, because if you're posting up, you may blow your angles when you're moving back and forward with the gun on the very, very extreme edges of its traverse. But for all that, it's quite easy with this gun and this tank to not miss any shots. And you can see here, LP Lima is just farming up deluxe. They're all trying to get... It's just like a death wind, just a wind of death. The kamikaze, it's the divine wind. It's just smashing everything. The Leopard now, down there. Let's have the Leopard. Duck out if you would. No. Back to the Panzer IV. I'd have a shot at that too, LP. You've been hitting everything else. Want to have a crack at that one? 2 on 4 at the moment. The A20's pushing up. But the A20 has to understand there is an awful lot of DPM here in LP Lima's pocket. And if this... Oh, they're all pushing up. Panzer IV's got caught looking the wrong way. Doesn't even have to drop the adrenaline there. Just pulls back. Lovely stuff. The A20 is still on his right-hand side. Look at this gun. And this is something I've talked about in a lot of tanks. I mention this all the time with regard to tier 10 mediums, for instance, and tier 9 mediums. A lot of tanks have very, very big ceilings and high DPM numbers. Tanks like the S35 actually get a lot more out of their gun and get a lot more use of their DPM, because they've got DPM that is easy to bring to bear. They hardly miss any shots. Like, this guy is not CODing a 62 degrees of traverse, 29 gun arc tank. And that is something that doesn't get mentioned often enough when people are just talking about raw numbers. You might have all the DPM in the world, but if you are not able to bring it to bear, then you may as well have nothing on the end of your tank, no gun whatsoever. When you can actually hit your targets, when you can actually track targets that are trying to circle of death you, when you can find little niches in the battlefield and exploit them, little bits of terrain and ridges, then you really are getting the most out of your tank. And for that reason, you very rarely find a tank with outstanding DPM that also has outstanding gun depression without it having big negatives in other points of the compass. Take the Leopard, for instance. It's got amazing DPM, but it's got horrific armor profile. It has great gun depression, but again, it's got wafer thin sides. So it's no surprise that when I looked at this and I saw the armor profile, I just thought, oh, this is a joke. It's a non-turreted TD with absolutely no armor. It's going to get torn apart. But you can see in these games, like, it is an absolute hilarious tank in terms of getting out there. It's got super fast acceleration. It's able to look around these corners. Like, you're on a Himmelsdorf. If you're in a non-turreted TD, it is very, very hard if you can't side scrape to get shots off. Not so for the bathtub. The bathtub is very, very comfortable with corners. Watch looking down the right there. Okay, look at the angle that he is at. Look how quickly he withdraws. Look how fast the tank moves around. And that is not a little bit of DPM. 2200 DPM is enough to tear those tanks apart in like 20 seconds if left unchecked. And if they get the first shot and chuck adrenaline on, it's a 10-second situation. I mean, the thing is an absolute death wagon. Now, if you know how to play against it and you know how to exploit its weaknesses, sure. But it is one of the most vastly underrated tanks I've ever had a crack at. And I can tell you right now that there are quite a few people out there who took umbrage with the way I characterised this tank when it was first produced. And then there were people like Stinky and some of the others who said, please don't correct your mistake. Look at this. Look at this Leopard trying to get around this S35. It's ridiculous. You can't COD it. It's one of the most agile TDs I've ever seen. And not just agile, because of that gun arc, it tracks everything. And look at the angles he's at right now. Putting shots in over there on the right. Brilliant game this. Working the angles on Himmelsdorf. Just shredding. Absolutely shredding. Zero, you champion. Just flogging everyone in the S35A. And if they come around that corner, they're going to get a taste of DPM, baby. You got to love it. You got to love games like this. And you got to love tanks like this that people just really underestimate, that they don't think is going to get the job done. And they push on it, and the next thing you know, you're picking up your own teeth off the ground and wondering what hit you. Go Zero. 1 on 3, 1 on 4, down to 1 on 3. This bloke should know better than to push. That DPM is too high. The reload is absolutely superb. He's running it at the, he's running the 75mm. Both of these guns are valid. Hey, like, if you can drive it like this, you can run it with a toothpick on the front and you'll still make out like a bandit. The Hetzakame is pushing. Look at the agility of this little number here. Getting, bang, moving. Goes past it. Look at the speed on the traverse. It is hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. His partner says nice, as well he should. Look at that angle. It's insane. Zero, wow, says the Leopard. That was like watching a guy in a Western walk into a bar and hit everything with the 6-shooter. Nearly 3,000 damage, mastery, Top Gun, Pools Medal, Kolobanov. Geez, throw in the kitchen sink, give him the Order of Charles de Gaulle or something as well. I don't know, but I thought that was fantastic. And a great little tank that probably more people should be driving, including me. I'm Bushka on Blitz. Please subscribe to the channel. Please like the videos. Look after yourselves. And as always, stay safe on the battlefield. Bye for now.